to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK.
And I'm Courtney.
And Courtney, how are you?
There are so many ways I could answer that question. And I don't know which one is correct. I'm a lot of things. I am moving in less than a month um to not live somewhere, just temporary. So I'm in the midst of trying to figure out where I'm going to be living anytime in the near future. Which is a little stressful.
Yeah.
New York does not want me here,
Mhm.
but I would like to be here. So we'll see. So I'm coming up with all of these like chaotic plans for how to like not lose my ties to New York. And like I've been looking up flights that are like direct from New Orleans to New York and like how many times a month can I fly back and forth? Like if I did like 1 week a month in New York and spent the rest of my time in New Orleans or on tour with my musician, like what is that gonna look like? Like, is that feasible? I don't know what it is. I don't know that it's not though. Like
That's
there are
true.
reasonable flights between like I found one that was like $170 round trip from New Orleans to New York. If I do that one time in the month, I could probably afford that because I'm not like paying to stay in New York. Like I would just like stay with Noelle or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, and like I have
Also,
to come back for yes.
just a quick pause. If you are watching this on video, I have no idea how it's gonna appear recorded, but the audio is working fine. The video is being weird. So if it doesn't
Oh,
clear
it's still
up,
being weird on your end.
yeah, if it doesn't clear up in the recording, I apologize, YouTube. That's all.
Just is what it is, YouTube.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's a big benefit concert at the end of April. I mean, then a May that Caitlin's playing at, so I'm gonna at least fly up for that. Um, and I'll theoretically be here through the month of April regardless, but we'll see. Who's to say I won't just go home? Um, because yeah, there's so many things happening in so many places, and I don't know where I'm. So, long story short, I don't know where I'm gonna live. I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and I've just kind of given up. But it's fine. I've tried to switch from my panic into what have I been telling? I've been oh gosh, it's another P word. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Productivity.
No.
I've been saying I'm turning my panic into productivity. I
Love
edited an
that.
entire show last night that Caitlin did, which took over 2 hours. Was that what I was supposed to
Okay.
be doing yesterday? No, but it did
No.
need to be done. I was supposed to do it 3 weeks ago, so we did it yesterday.
Yeah.
I made an entire list of casting directors and their open availability to start pitching Noelle to for new acting spots. Sent her all of the in-person auditions that are in New York in the next couple of weeks. Like doing things, making
Yeah.
things happen, whether or not they're supposed to. I'm supposed to be cleaning out my house and packing and washing laundry for South by Southwest, which I leave for in 2 days. So that's
Yeah.
how I am. How are you?
Um, well, on Thursday, no, on Friday, it was spring and I had the windows
Mhm.
open and I was playing Machine Gun Kelly and drinking iced coffee. And then yesterday it was fall and it was raining and gross and I wanted to just curl up in bed, but I couldn't because I had to do things. And today it's
Right.
winter. It's fucking snowing. It literally was so nice that I had iced coffee 2 days ago and now it's snowing. And so I will be sick for the rest of my life because I was better before this.
I will be
And
sick for the rest of my life if I'm flying back and forth between New Orleans and New
that's
York.
also true.
But
And also, I was complaining to
so
Courtney before we started recording that this they didn't put any vanilla in my vanilla blonde latte. Turns out they did. They just used
you
the
found it.
most I found it halfway through the cup. Apparently they used the most bitter milk for the milk foam at the top of the thing, or they like forgot that I ordered a triple and threw an extra shot of espresso on the top after they already did the foam. I'm gonna go ahead and say that that one is probably what happened.
That's probably the one.
Because the milk foam was just straight espresso, and I was like, "What the fuck is this?" But I found the
And if
vanilla.
you're watching on video, you see the
It's
moment when that happened. Because I saw the moment when that
yeah,
happened.
yeah. I found the rest of my actual drink that I ordered that was not espresso milk foam.
Excellent.
Um,
I'm glad it's there. I didn't find the rest
Me
of my
too.
drink. It's too little. So I'm gonna keep looking.
Right. So I am also living in existential panic. I also need a job and a place to live. Less dire than Courtney
Right,
because
man.
um I currently have a place to live that I'm not being moved out of forcibly. But I do also have no job or place to live in the next six
Yes.
months. So it's
Also,
going
to be clear, I'm not a heathen. I'm not being moved out to my own fault.
no, 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 no,
I
no, no.
have a very
She's
lovely
not
letter
being
from
she's
my
not being
landlord.
she's not being evicted. Her landlord is just
Yeah.
changing his policies and getting with the tenants.
I think he wants to make $500 more a month than what I pay him. But he didn't say
Yeah.
that. But he sent me a very lovely letter referring me because I've only been an excellent tenant to everyone around me and my home,
Yeah.
which just made me
Um,
really angry. I don't know if that's the right reaction. It just made me
right.
really angry because
Yeah,
it would be better
no.
if there was a reason I feel like.
Right. No, Courtney lives in New York City where sometimes even the nicest
They
landlords
don't let you live here
want
anymore.
to be slumlords. So like I live with my
So,
parents, but somehow feel like continuing to do that after I get married would be incorrect.
right. So maybe I will. We'll see.
Yeah, no, that's also a possibility is Courtney just moves here. Um, I don't know. Everything sucks. We don't know what we're doing. This literally, I said I was getting my hair done yesterday and I was like telling Monica and her friend Emily, who like she works in the salon with, and I was like, honestly, the biggest problem is that I have a million things to do. My to-do list is like 75 days long. But Starbucks, Machine Gun Kelly, and Harry Potter are the only things that make me want to be alive right now. So that's where I'm
Correct.
at.
Yeah, I literally texted every friend in every different state I know and I was like, what do you think about living there? What does your rent cost? I have a friend who lives in Vegas, and I've never even been to Vegas. It's like, what do you think about living in Vegas? He lives on the strip because he works for like he's an accountant for one of the big for Caesar's Palace and stuff. And so he like
Yeah.
lives on the strip. And it's still more affordable than living in New York. But like I don't want to move to Vegas. But I was like, what do you think? How do you
Um,
live? He's like, it's fine.
I you don't want to move to Vegas. And I don't have
Right.
that has nothing to do with the culture of Vegas. It has everything to do with the temperature of Vegas.
Oh, true, true, fair,
Yeah. Because
true.
I'm just thinking about what it felt like when I was in Phoenix last summer and thinking of you in Nevada or Arizona in the summer um, is comical at best.
Yeah, I think my best other options, other than going home and doing a complete 180 reset, would be like a Chicago or a Seattle. I could look at California because at least it doesn't get like that hot. It just also
Yeah,
doesn't have seasons. Or like
right.
Colorado. Those are kind of the places that I don't really know much music in Colorado though, but those are kind of my if I have to leave New York, I could go to these places.
Yeah.
Um,
I
no, we'll see.
I have been feeling very much like I just want to quit and run away and go back to Disney. I just
I
had the
also thought about
realization
I'm gonna apply to Disney too. See
I just had the
there's something to
realization today that I'm technically a full-time student again, so I could in fact
do.
go back and reapply for the Wilderness Explorers, like as a PI. Like I'm technically
Could
a full-time
I apply and pretend to be you and then steal your identity?
Please don't.
Hi,
But yeah,
you can train.
I literally had the realization last night that I am technically eligible to reapply for the Wilderness Explorers. And then I didn't say
Mm,
that out loud to Dan.
that's fine. That's fine, I guess.
Um,
Also, so sorry if you hear a jackhammer in the background at any moment because it has started up again. This has been, what time is it? It's 12:30. This has been going on since 8 a.m. At least. That's when I noticed it was at 8 a.m. So I hope you can't
Gross.
hear it, but if you can, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Um, well,
Nice.
since our lives are falling apart, I think it is now time for our dose of spirituality or something of the
Oh yes,
sort.
that should come first. That should come
Yeah.
first.
But then this episode is going to be fucking long as shit, so I'm just apologizing right now.
I literally put like we could not have had a better episode for how chaotic this week was in our lives.
Yeah.
Like this was the perfect episode for this week. So for good things and whatnot, um, remember, growth often means letting go of some things. Creating room for what truly benefits you means releasing what no longer serves your purpose. And sometimes what you lose actually turns out to be a gain. As you move away from old relationships that don't fit who you're becoming, you open the door to new connections with people who genuinely care about you and make you feel loved. It's all part of the process of evolving and finding your true place. R.M. Drake.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Love
That I
it.
needed to this week
Yeah.
for
Well,
leaving my entire life behind. Anyways,
we are talking today about Stargate SG-1, Season 5, Episode 12, the 100th episode of Stargate, Wormhole Extreme. No, I know what you're thinking.
the most insane thing.
Last week's episode premiered the Friday before 9/11. But don't worry,
Oh my God, I did not think that.
this episode premiered on Saturday, September 8th. So the next day.
What is the world?
So it came out because it was the 100th anniversary, like the 100th episode. It was a big to do and it was on Showtime. So they didn't have like necessarily the need to follow
a release
a release schedule. And this was the last episode before the like hiatus for the season. So they did a big to do and it was on a Saturday night.
So there's also a hiatus after this.
Yes, this is the last episode to like.
That's all very good for their production. They did really excellent production choices without knowing it.
100%. So good. I mean, and a lot of this production, this is going to be the most production notes I ever have on an episode. Because of course it is. Like, if you watched the episode, you'll understand. But so it premiered on Saturday.
You're going on a road trip.
Saturday, September 8th, and it was rated 8 stars, 8 even. Same top everything because it's literally a day later. Nothing is new.
Yeah, nothing's new.
But on this day, because it's a Saturday, we have some weird, interesting things happening. Kylie Minogue released I Just Can't Get You Out of My Head. This was the day that that song was released. If you know Kylie Minogue, you know that song because it was literally her best song.
You Were Alive in 2001. You know that song?
Yeah. Venus Williams beat Serena to hold the title in the U.S. Women's World Open or the U.S. Women's Open.
I'm like, how do they not constantly hate each other? Like, I get it. They're siblings and they like are happy the other one won. But like, could you imagine putting in all this work, all this time, and then you lose to your sister? I think I'd be even more angry than just some random person.
I think so too.
So
the movie Training Day, starring Denzel Washington, had its Toronto premiere, and so there's videos from the red carpet from that night all over when you search this day. But then, because we can't get through the news in September of 2001 without saying something unfortunately tragic. The First Lady Bush, I can't remember if she's Barbara or Barbara, right? Or is that his mother?
Barbara is George is the baby Bush's.
Okay, yes, then yes. I was like, whichever one was the first lady in 2001. I couldn't remember.
Well, I know if you meant like the first lady from before or from now.
Yes, no. Whichever one. I can't ever remember which one is Barbara and what is the other one's name. Barbara is
I do know the other one's
W's. Well, whichever Bush was the first lady at this time, opened the first annual National Book Festival at the Library of Congress, which kicked off a week of reading and education awareness, which of course resulted in George Bush going to elementary schools across the country to read books to them for National Book Festival Week, which is where he was on Tuesday morning. Yay! This was also
Yay.
part of it was because 2001 obviously was when No Child Left Behind the bills.
Mm,
And I'm pretty sure during the National Book Festival kickoff, George Bush gave a speech and talked about the fact that it had officially passed in the House and Congress. And so then in January of 2002,
mhm.
he signed it. It probably would have been signed earlier if the world had not fallen apart in
Right. I
September.
for
So
sure thought you were about to say she opened up the first thing of anthrax, because wasn't that also that week too? Did that also happen during 9/11? Or
yeah,
was
but
that later?
I think it happened after the attacks though.
Maybe so.
Maybe,
I
but
couldn't
yes,
remember.
no, but it was the
It's all a
inauguration of
blur.
the it was the inauguration of the National Book Festival, which was, of course, why George Bush was
Nice.
in a
Nice.
classroom when 9/11 happened.
Mm,
Um,
yep.
so yeah,
Yep.
so just a touch of that because that's where we're at in the world.
Just a touch.
But this episode was directed by Peter DeLuise with a story by Brad Wright, Joseph Malozzi, and Paul Mully, and a teleplay by Joseph Malozzi and Paul Mully. It was edited by Peter Wost, and the guest star is Michael DeLuise.
I saw that. I saw that in the credits.
He is known for Wayne's World, Encino Man, The Master of Disguise, and SeaQuest 2032. But most importantly, he played TJ in Gilmore Girls and Andy Jr. in NYPD Blue.
Which one was
So,
TJ?
um, Luke's brother-in-law, like Jess's stepdad.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Who was he in NYPD Blue? Oh wait, I'm thinking blue collar or whatever. What is the one I watched?
Blue Bloods.
Blue Bloods.
Yeah, no.
Never mind.
NYPD Blue was a cop show from the 90s that I am obsessed with, and I don't think anyone my age has actually watched it. It was like my mom watched it, and then I just like binge watched it in 2014 for some reason. Um,
Yeah, it's on my list.
yeah, it's one of my favorite shows. Um, but all of his trivia online is about his family, and like it's like he is the son of this person and the brother of this person, and like his entire trivia is just that the
Bless
DeLuise
her.
family is the DeLuise family.
His family. Yep.
Also, I spent like 25 minutes looking at this Instagram account that claims to be him, but I don't think it is.
What
Like
does that mean?
if you search him on Instagram, only one account comes up. But all of the like pictures and stuff that it shows like are of him, but then it'll randomly have a picture of like a celebrity woman dressed really sexy or doing something, and it'll be like clearly someone that like he should would not actually be saying this about if it was actually him. And it has the whole like stealing a professional's pictures and pretending to be them vibe. And it's not
I
verified.
don't see. I only see a Matt DeLuise one.
That's him. No,
Is
that's the
that the
one that
one?
is. If you click on it, it says Michael, and it says like Magic or Mike or something on like it, and it just does not feel like it is legitimately him.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, like it is. It gives off very creepy fan vibes.
Maybe he's just creepy and we didn't
I
know.
mean, maybe there is always that possibility.
Because it's also kind of like chaotic for like a stolen account. You know, like they usually have more, just a little more in your face, I feel like. I mean, this does not sound like a real person did it, but like
Right.
at the
No,
same time,
that's the thing is like it
it's
is
I don't know. This might be him.
this. Yeah, no, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just feels,
No, I totally 1000% see what you're saying.
it
It's
could be
just kind of
him.
like a strange,
Yeah, like it could be him and he's had a mental breakdown or five since this episode.
yeah, that's
Um, but also but then it also has things like, anytime he's in the pictures, it has his name in the captions, which like doesn't feel like
Yeah,
you something you would do if it was yourself.
right. I'm trying to
And
see if
then
it's like connected to
there's a
anything.
link, in the bio to his website, but like you can put a link to a website in anything.
Right, but I'm trying to see if anything links back to this that's on his website. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, yeah, yeah,
if you go to his
yeah.
website and then try to go to Instagram from there, does it connect? Been doing a lot of sleuthing lately. There have been some shady things going on in the world of music that
No,
I've been
if
having
you
to
go to his
like
website and click on
sus.
Instagram, if you go to his website and click on Instagram, it is a broken link. It doesn't take you to anything.
Oh, I bet someone stole his stuff then, and then he just canceled Instagram, is
Yeah.
what happened. And that's why
Because,
this
like,
link is broken now.
right, because the Facebook link is legitimate and the Twitter link is
Yeah.
legitimate, but the Instagram isn't. And
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
it
I think you're
feels very
right.
much like some
Good look
of these
now.
pictures, like it feels like some of the pictures probably were on his Instagram to begin with. But the
Mm-hmm.
captions didn't seem right. And then like every third or fourth picture is just like a half naked
Right.
woman. And I was like,
Yeah.
this feels wrong.
Yeah, it
So
feels very strange. It looks like maybe they took some of the stuff that was on his
yeah, like they took what was already on there and then
Facebook.
like yeah, it's just plus like he's old and like not really like super active in the like um social media world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
interesting.
it gave me the ick. It could be that he is the ick, but the account gave me the ick for whichever whether it's
No, I
spam.
think since the link doesn't work and it looks like it's all stuff that's coming from his Facebook, so I'm
Right,
thinking someone like duped his account and then he just canceled his account instead of reporting them or trying to take back his Instagram. He just didn't do any of that. He just closed
right.
it.
Yeah. So
Yeah, because a lot of the stuff that's on here is the same stuff with random
from
stuff
it,
sprinkled in.
yes, it's like all the
Mm,
pictures that were on his Facebook, but then also like a random lady breastfeeding. And I was like, what the fuck?
yeah, interesting.
But all the
Well, welcome
pictures
to
that are
our deep dive
yeah,
podcast.
all the pictures that are like of women, I then found on their Instagrams. So it's like,
And it's like of relevant things. Like one was from the woman who's doing Days of Wine and Roses, and so like
yeah.
that's one that's like a recent update, but it's like he does. I don't think he has any tie to that show, and it's very
Well,
strange.
that's the thing is like
Yeah, I think
I at first I thought the
yeah.
picture of the breastfeeding, I was like, oh, maybe that's his wife. So I clicked on it and then I was like looking at pictures of her and her husband, and I was like, so then I looked him up and looked up his wife's name, and I was like, cool, not that woman. And that's what made me, that's where I started my spiral into this not being his account.
That's fair. That's fair. It's a good spiral. Good job.
Yeah. Don't worry. I have way more trivia to talk about when we finish this episode. Which, to be fair, the actual like notes for the
Episode
episode,
is
I mean, I wrote like 8 pages, but it's not gonna be, it should be
no. We don't have
quick,
to
I
like
think.
discuss or guess what's gonna happen next. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So previously on begins the episode, and it reminds us of Marty the alien, which we did talk about last week, that was how this was going to start. And then we start the actual episode with the team discussing that there was a ship passing Mars, and like they thought it could be an asteroid, but like it is like actively moving, which is not something an asteroid does. And they match the
Correct.
energy signature of the ship to the data they have of Martin's ship. Um, and it's headed towards Earth and will be there in 3 days. Then we see a flash of a different team attempting to escape a planet when they are all shot by really cheap um, vocal gunshots and a director, and they all die, and the director yells, "Cut." The director is like,
You,
"Great, good shot, moving on." And Martin is there, and he's like, "No, that was terrible. We need to do it again." And then we get the
well, they
credits.
have cast the worst actors in this little production they're creating. So what did you think was going to happen? Because they don't know anything.
Um, After the credits, we go back to our team who is watching the trailer for Wormhole Extreme, which is the name of this terrible show we just saw being shot.
I this may have been one of my greatest joys is watching their faces watching this.
Yes.
It was just
Because every
so
time they
insane.
introduced a character and like showed them, they then flipped to the character it was a caricature of and their reaction of the caricature of themselves. And they're all just like mildly perplexed. And then it ends and Daniel just goes, "Well, that felt vaguely familiar."
Coke's reaction was the best though. He was the one the most taken aback by what
Oh
was going
yeah.
on, I believe.
Yeah. It
Everyone
turns
else
out
was just like, of course this happened.
right. It turns out that Martin sold the idea to a studio, and now this is where all of my theories about Stargate actually come from because it turns out that Martin sold this idea and the Air Force is letting it happen so that in the future, anytime someone tries to blame them for the space program, they can scapegoat it back to Wormhole Extreme, which I think is an inception because it's what I've always said is true about Stargate and the current Air Force.
That was my exact feeling watching this. I was like, this is
It is
how you trick
inception.
people.
Yes.
Exactly. This is
Um,
how you pretend like things are insane and can't be real because you're hiding them.
And to be fair, my thoughts about Stargate actually being the Space Force, probably come from the fact that I saw this episode when I was 9.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, for sure.
but that's where the beginning of my conspiracy theory obsession comes from, is this moment right now.
Okay, but this one's like super possible comparatively. So, like, you started with one of the ones that's like, oh, that could be real. Like,
Which
of course, the
I
government hides stuff from us randomly
right
and
kids
put it in front of our face.
um the science teacher in my middle school has been teaching like they're doing a space unit in all the different grade levels. So
Mhm.
like it's different levels of intensity in the different grade levels, but they're doing a space unit. And one of the fifth graders fully 100% thinks the moon landing was fake. It's the same fifth grader who told me her pronouns were USA and then screeched like a eagle in my face. So like
You did not tell me this, but that all tracks now.
but so he was like
Ask if
talking to
birds are real. I won't I won't follow-ups every week. I'm gonna
right.
give you an assignment. I
Yes.
want you to
Okay. So
report
this
back.
this week the question is, are birds real? Got it.
Yes.
Um
That's this
so but so he was like trying to like figure out how to politely shut these kids down because like that is, of all the conspiracy theories to believe in, that is one of the ones that is the hardest to like stomach because it just doesn't make any sense. Like even if you look at all of the things that people say are behind it, it just like logically doesn't make sense why that would be fake. And I was like, the only conspiracy, I was like, oh no, listen, I'm so into it. I go, my favorite conspiracy theory to deep dive to like freak out about, Jonathan A. Ramsey. And I went off on all my thoughts about Jonathan
oh,
A.
every day.
Ramsey. And
I
then,
also brought up John Benet Ramsey this week because one of my coworkers didn't really know who she was. I was like, I'm sorry, you're only 5 years younger than me. You're not born yesterday.
but so then I'm sitting there
Like,
like typing on my computer. I have a planning period, and he's across the hall teaching the seventh graders. And all of a sudden, I hear my name and conspiracy theories. So I like walk across the hall. He was like, what are we saying?" And he was like, "Oh no, I was just telling them that you and I agree on who killed John Benet Ramsey." I was like, "Oh, 100%, it was her brother." And like then I went off and I like spiraled, and the seventh graders were just like staring at me. And I was like,
so you now took over two classes of conspiracy theories,
"Yes,
yours and someone else's.
yeah, yeah,
Great.
yes, great." Um, So anyway, yes. So conspiracy theory, the Air Force is hiding their actual actions behind really bad sci-fi TV shows. Um,
For sure. For sure.
and but in order to find out what Martin knows, Jack is being sent to work on the TV show as their new Air Force consultant.
You could not have a better consultant
Right.
than
So
Jack O'Neill.
he gets there, and Martin is like yelling at a prop master, that aliens don't eat apples, and that like, and he's just like, you guys need to try harder. Like this doesn't even make sense. The best part about this show, and I'll talk about this when we talk about trivia and production, is the fact that it was a commentary on themselves.
I know. I would also
Like,
like to know, do aliens not eat apples? Like, is
well,
that like,
I mean, they don't. If it's a different planet, who says the trees are the same?
well, like, but
That's
like if they come, oh, because they're filming on a
oh.
different planet. Because I was gonna say like if they come to America, they just don't eat apples. Like,
Yeah, no,
but
I'm
I see
sure
what you're
they.
saying. I
Yeah,
see.
like they're on a different planet. There's trees on the planet, but like
Yeah, yeah.
Johnny Appleseed wasn't there.
Right, right, right. That's
Um,
correct. Unless he was also an alien. New conspiracy theory. Who's to say? Who
um,
would have
but
thought this would be a conspiracy episode?
so Jack goes to see Martin, and he's like, "Hey, Marty," and he's like, "You are." So we find out that Martin has no memory of anything that happened with Jack or Montana or the SGC or anything from the first episode that we saw him in. Um,
Yeah.
so Jack is like, great, not a good sign. So he goes into his trailer and he doesn't find any medication, but he finds a shit ton of vitamins that he sends back to do an analysis on to see if the chemicals from the first episode are in these vitamins. Um, because Tanner and his men might be involved, they decide to send the others in as backup to find out what's going on. So now everyone is in LA for this Hollywood shoot. Um, Nick,
What a time.
Nick, who is the actor played by Michael DeLuise, playing Jack, um, is shooting a love scene, but he can't do it because he feels awkward that there are dead bodies on the ground. um, And then Martin, he was like, well, we saw you shoot the aliens, and one shot stuns and two shots kills, so the body has to be there. And then Martin goes, well, just shoot them a third time because a third shot disintegrates them. And the director goes, that is the dumbest thing I have ever heard.
All of the pushback from this like production team is so funny because it's like
This is what it was really
I
like
get
trying to
it.
make this show.
Yeah, 100%. So it was like, that's the dumbest thing. And then it gets put in there and they're like, well, now this is canon. This is what we have to do now. Fine.
Yeah. Um, so then Nick asks Jack if this is the real deal, like this is really what they do every day, and like if their uniforms really look like this. And then he's like, it just doesn't make any sense why the aliens aren't wearing camouflage. Don't you think that they'd want to be hidden? Like, why aren't they wearing camouflage? And Jack goes, well, they're the ones that are dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Nick just goes, thank you, that helps so much.
It's just like, I understand Jack is an interesting choice to send for this, but I don't know who would be a better choice. Like, I can't, I was trying to run through it and like, Sam
No,
would be too like calm and like, I see what you're saying there. Like,
yeah,
this is really why to try to give science, no one's listening. Tilk is just going to tell them everything about everything, and it's not good. And Daniel is just
Daniel.
too chaotic. Daniel is,
Yeah.
he's a loose cannon. There's no way to know what he would
Daniel
do.
doesn't work for the Air
So,
Force, like technically.
right, right. So,
Um,
like,
yeah.
Jack, I
Um,
guess, is the best option of SG-1, but
right. Um, so then Bob and Tanner are getting ready to leave, whatever that means, but then they figure out that Jack found Martin and now they're worried about what will happen next. That was a quick cutaway scene. And then we have another weird quick cutaway scene where Hammond is giving Carter authorization to begin surveillance, but that they need to not show their hand. So they need to hide that they're surveilling. And then Janet comes in to tell Hammond that the vitamins do, in fact, contain the memory forgetting chemical. And the conversation between Janet and Hammond is also ridiculous, but I don't remember it. So
Maybe they should have sent Janet to talk to them.
maybe. Yolanda, who is the actress playing Sam's part, asks Martin and the director. This is, she was like, so I'm out of phase, right? And my hand can go through anything. And they're like, yeah, that's because you're out of phase. And she just goes, so why don't I fall through the floor? And the amount of time that the two of them stared at her in silence was my favorite part of the entire episode.
It's so funny. So it's like the same. It's one of like the biggest critiques I feel like with like ghosts and shows. They're like,
Yeah,
why can they walk through walls but not fall through the floor?
right. She's like, how do I, if I'm out of phase, how do I exist? Like, it doesn't even make sense. And they're just like,
Not today. Not today.
um, then we find out that Teal'c is running craft services at the studio, and no one appreciates his cooking.
Rude. They're all so rude.
Yeah. Daniel and Sam find that there are hidden cameras in Martin's house again. So that's not good. Then back on set, the producer is meeting with Marty, Jack, and the director, and he just like wants to cut everything. And Marty's like, "No, we need a spaceship." He's like, "If you can make a spaceship happen for $5,000 less, then you can have a spaceship." And he
I
is
feel like
like,
that is the exact argument they had
"Yeah."
for
And
Stargate.
he's
Like,
and Marty's like, "I need it to be more scientifically accurate." And he's like saying all this stuff, and then what did Jack was like. And they're like, what are we going to do with the giant alien? Jack's like, why don't you just shoot it? And the producer's like, are you saying that as an Air Force colonel would just shoot a giant alien? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, see, thank you. Um, and so then Martin is very upset that the show is being taken out of his hands by all of these bigwigs. And Jack is like, where did you even like come up with this story? And he's like, oh yeah, like I wrote it last year. To be honest, I don't even know how the studio got their hands on it, but like, it is what it is. And he's like, but like, where did you come up with it? And he's like, writers don't know where they came up with things. They just do it. And I was like,
no, I said that is honestly the most correct response I feel like for a writer. Because if
yeah,
you looked at anything I wrote, I would be like, I have no idea. I can tell you where I found the research, or I can tell you how it evolved from this first idea, but I
yeah,
have no idea where the first one came from.
no,
An unhinged idea. I
yeah,
was supposed to write a children's book about how two people who are lonely handled loneliness, and
yeah,
it turned into a really sad short story for adult on loneliness and completely losing all of your hope. It was like very much 180. So I was like, yeah, these are not things you can explain as a writer.
no, 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 no. Um, but so then Sam lets Jack know what they have found, and Jack goes and gets the license plate number for everyone who has ever been in the studio, and sends it to Sam and Daniel. And they find one of Tanner's men masquerading as a PA. Um, and they go to his apartment. Now, the funniest moment of this scene was when Daniel said, why would someone with multiple PhDs be working as a, well, what word did he use? A teamster. He said, why would somebody with multiple PhDs be working as a teamster? And Sam said, probably for the money.
1000%. I was like, I've
When I
never like
tell
this whole
you,
episode, the unhinged parts of this episode, I'm like, that's what gets to my soul. I've been there. I felt
Yeah,
that. Like me trying to think about like what I'm gonna do if I move out of New York, and I'm like, what job am I gonna take that pays me the most that I have to do the least amount of work so I can run a business on the side? Like, I
yeah.
get it.
Every
I
time
would totally do
that
that.
every time that I'm at work at Shays and I look at the stagehands who are like 60-year-old men who have nothing to do except for like this set and they just smoke weed all day long, all the time, and make 6 times more money than I do. I'm like, I'm in the wrong profession.
100%.
Um,
100%.
yeah. So this episode was an unhinged, like just love song to the bullshit that is the entertainment industry.
Real
And it
life.
was
Uh,
amazing.
this
Um,
this is no Doctor Who special.
no. So they follow him to his apartment, and despite being directly behind him in a third floor apartment, when they walk in, he isn't there. And they're like, oh, yeah, remember how those guys can just disappear? You didn't remember that before you followed him into the apartment. Um, but they tell Jack and say that he has to like confront Martin and figure out what's going on. Then we have a scene that was very quick and very unnecessary, but made me die laughing when the props department is trying to use wire to lift the Grell, who is the Teal character's single eyebrow, because apparently that actor cannot lift one eyebrow.
Yep. Yep. That
Um,
was. I was like, we didn't
yeah,
need this, but that's okay. I'm glad it's there.
right. So Jack confronts Martin, and Martin thinks he's joking about like everything, and he's like, "Ugh, this is a great story." Um, so Sam and Daniel go to the warehouse to find Tanner, and only to find the NID and a setup.
Yeah, it's like I never know what's gonna happen next.
No,
Like, there's so many
no.
places we're coming from.
And then Martin answers his page while he's talking to Jeff. He gets a page that he has to go on set, and he answers his page and goes to the stage 6, but no one else is there. And Jack follows him, and they're ambushed by Tanner. And Tanner ties them up, and Martin is still like insisting that all of this is nonsense, and he has no idea what they're talking about until Tanner injects him with something to counteract the vitamins. And then Sam
But
and
also he's
Daniel,
so pitiful because he's like, they're just joking with me. They do this all the time. I was like, that's so sad. Like
right?
these people are so mean to you.
Yeah. Sam and Daniel say that they need to go to the studio and like figure out what's going on, but the NID agents are like, no, 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 we are in charge of the investigation now. Um, so then Teal comes to release Jack and Martin, who's still loopy, and then like Martin remembers and like tells them that he actually drugged himself so that he could just live a normal life because and forget about his planet because it's so tragic that everyone is dead.
That truly does make the most sense.
Yeah. And but the ship is headed back to Earth because there was a timer on it. And like they're at the point where it's gonna come back to get them. And so like Tanner can't leave without the remote that Martin is hiding. Um, and the scanner isn't in the prop house because someone added it to the scene at the last minute, so it's actually on set. Um, and turns out the props master is working with the NID, and he calls them and lets them know that Jack and Martin are looking for this thing. Um, so they go to set to steal the quadra scanner, and Jack is trying to get Marty to use it to like reverse the ship when Tanner ambushes them again. And then and then the NID is like on its way. And it's too late because the ship is like arriving and Marty's like, turn the camera. And they like film the ship landing. And then as they're filming the ship, Marty says, we're gonna win an Emmy for this visual effects department.
Who's
Um,
got to beat Puccini? What is it called?
Puchinsky. Um,
Puchinski. Yeah.
again, the only Emmys that Stargate has ever won are for music and visual effects. So,
Yeah.
But then Jack gives Tanner the device and like saves them from the NID, and is like, "You guys owe me one because fuck the NID."
Yeah, sure.
And then we get something that we have never gotten in Stargate before, and that is like post-credit scenes.
Nothing has ever brought me more joy in my life. Ever.
Just fucking
I literally
nonsense bloopers.
I did not. Usually I watch this back to back with American Horror Story, and I did not because I was like, I am on a high right now. I am not going straight into American Horror Story from
No,
this
you just
moment in
need
my
to
life.
live in that moment. Yeah. I had just finished
Yeah.
this episode when I was texting you Friday about the unhinged plans we had for your future. So that's what I did with my high of this episode.
Look,
Um,
I what a wild day. What a wild day.
yeah. So in terms of trivia, there's so much that I have to say. Starting with the fact that every single person who talked on the show as like a point person, like a random person in the background, was a member of the production team.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Um,
I love that so much.
obviously the director was Peter DeLuise, playing the director himself. Um, the guy in the yellow shirt who yelled about the donuts was Joseph Malosi. The the two production assistants at the end who were talking about when should we fade out of this moment and like what do we do with the clip of the spaceship and everything were Michael Greenberg, the executive producer, and Brad Wright. Um, Martin Wood is also
Beautiful.
one of the people in the production. Like everybody from our core team was in the episode. Um, the comment by Colonel Danning in the wormhole intro, yes, it does say Colonel on my uniform, is a reference to an early episode where Jack O'Neill, after being argued with by the rest of SG-1, says, "Does it say Colonel anywhere on my uniform?" The studio where Wormhole Extreme is being shot, Bridge Studios, is actually the primary filming location for the series.
Nice. I don't know if this is one of your fun facts, but they
Yeah.
made a comment that he wanted to call it some nonsense
Oh,
title, but he called it
going to
Wormhole
other planets.
Extreme because yes, yeah, because if you put an X in the title, it makes it have a higher rating or
Yeah.
higher viewer count. And I totally believe that. And I wondered if this episode of Stargate had any result of that. Like, did
Maybe.
we notice an uptick based on the name?
Well, I mean, it was
Or was that something that you came
rated
across?
much higher than
I
the
mean, it was also the
surrounding
100th
episodes.
episode on a
That's
Saturday,
very
but
true.
like,
Yeah. Um, a shot that didn't make the final cut that I really wish it would have was that scene where they all watched the Wormhole Extreme. What originally the first take of that filming was all four of them of Hammond, Jack, Daniel, and Sam just staring at it in utter disbelief that it happened, and then they turned the camera to Grell, and Teal'c just fucking bursts out laughing like he's never seen anything more ridiculous in his entire life. And that cut did not make the final. Um,
oh, but I like when Teal'c laughs.
I know.
I also forgot they called him Murray again. I always forget until it happens. And then it
Yeah.
just like I burst out laughing. I'm okay, Murray. Don't worry about me.
Um, one of the things that in his loopy state post like injection that Marty says while he's talking to himself is the real money's in syndication. Um, and it's common knowledge in the entertainment industry that you need at least 100 episodes to be eligible for a syndication, and this was the 100th episode of the show, so that was just like a we did it.
We made it.
Um,
I love that.
at one point, Jack makes a comment about it's okay, it's on cable, which because yeah. Oh, Martin Wood is the director, is the NID agent that confronts them in the uh
The truck thing. Was it a
yes,
truck or did it just feel like a truck? Okay.
the warehouse.
Warehouse.
And
That's
yeah, and then the writer who's like trying to give directions at the very beginning of the episode with the guns, and Marty yells at him to just go write something, is Robert C. Cooper. So
on
in
which
our
scene? He's
at the beginning, the writer who's wearing the like Hawaiian shirt and the baseball cap at the beginning, and like he's like trying to give notes
Hawaiian
on the
shirt.
episode, that is
Uh-huh.
actually Robert C. Cooper. So,
That's
uh,
funny.
um,
That's amazing.
on the production design documents for this element or this episode, the faux pilot episode for Wormhole Extreme was called Empire of the Dluagog, which is Goa'uld spelled backwards.
I didn't even notice. That's so funny.
Um, Christian Boscher, who plays Dr. Levant, who plays Raymond Gunn, who's playing Dr. Levant, who's inspired by Daniel Jackson, who's played by Michael Shanks, which that was my favorite
Hmm.
line.
That was the best.
He is actually was part of Colonel Mayborn's team. He was in the off-world secret Stargate base with where Mayborn and Makepeace got arrested episode.
Well, yeah. Fine,
Um,
fine.
so the rest of these all come from some interviews. So Brad Wright said in an interview that this was going to be a really special episode because they really wanted to make fun of themselves and then share that with the fans. Um,
I love that so much.
and he said, I promised a bunch of people when we started this that I would make sure we got to 100 episodes and that we would be healthy when we got there. Um, and
That's the important thing they don't tell you.
right.
We've just gotten to 300 episodes, but I don't know that we're healthy. So,
Yeah. And then he also said, like, rather than do a heavy, expensive, big episode like we normally do, we wanted to do something that was like a parody of ourselves, like the Galaxy Quest version of Stargate SG-1, which
that was like my
allows
favorite movie as a child.
yeah. And so he said it's a balls out comedy, which is opposed to many of the other episodes that we do. Um, Richard Dean Anderson said in an interview that he was really excited that Willie was coming back for the 100th episode because he's a very funny little man. Willie Garson, who plays Marty.
Yeah. I think that's the
Yeah.
only way I feel like I would describe. I understand I don't know him and have never met him,
Yeah.
but everything I've seen him in, that is what I would gather.
Um,
So
So, Paul Mully said in an interview that the harder part of writing this episode was actually the NID Marty storyline because he said it was really easy to just like make fun of ourselves and do all the spoof elements, but having the actual Stargate story underneath the parody was the hard part. But it had to be there because
that's
otherwise
hilarious.
it wouldn't have like meant anything.
Yeah.
Oh, and so we talked about Christian Brochet was already on the show, and obviously Michael DeLuise is Peter DeLuise's brother. The actor who played Grell is Teal'c's stunt double. Like he's Christopher Judge's actual stunt double.
They did look very similar.
Yes.
And so it makes sense. I feel like he was the closest looking one out of all of them,
Yeah.
which makes sense.
There was another draft that was a friendly dig at Star Trek, but included a reference to the Jack Sam relationship, and that got cut from the first draft.
Rude.
And if you notice, the only person on the production team who did not have a cameo was Paul Mully, because he is notoriously shy and he refused to do the cameo.
Oh, they should have just had like a picture of him then on like someone's desk.
Yeah.
So like he was still there. That would have been a great way to do it if he didn't want to be on the camera.
And then
But
like there were some other things that were just making fun of like Star Trek and like things like what the show needs is a sexy female alien, which are like things that people actually said to them.
Well, they had their alphabet alien. on this episode. So,
Right. Um, yeah, so there's just this episode was amazing because it was literally just them doing everything that they could to um like like make fun of what it was like to do this show. And they have like this is like this is a complete list of the jokes made about SG-1 and other shows in the sci-fi genre in general. The props man wonders why every alien speaks English, which um
correct. Which we've discussed
yes, we have discussed.
previously.
Um it somebody says when they're talking about the aliens on the ground, he says it's continuity, um which it says something sci-fi fans are rabid about. If alien bodies aren't where you left them in the last shot, we viewers will notice. The number of times that the only note on the IMDb page is about the continuity of bodies on the floor is ridiculous. The out of phase question
That's
came from the
funny.
fact that people genuinely watched Crystal Skull, the episode where Daniel was going in and out of phase and could not figure out how he could walk on the bridge. Um, um, oh, Tanner's men who works for the production company has the alias Steve Austin, which my brain went to
I
Stone
did
Cold Steve
not even
Austin.
notice that. Right,
My
right.
brain, but that's not what it's about. It's the character from the $6 Million Man, Lee Major's the main character in that show is called Steve
Um,
Austin. Um,
did they not realize this was like height Stone Cold Steve Austin time? If you're gonna name something Steve Austin,
right.
that's the immediate understanding.
Another thing, the character who's the Sam character, complains about never getting to kiss anyone, which is actually something that rings true of all of the love stories that happen. Daniel and Jack have and Teal'c have all kissed people, even though she has more alien love interests. Sam has never kissed anyone.
Not even Martouf. They didn't
Nope.
kiss.
Nope.
How
Um,
rude.
Martin criticizes O'Neill that their situation is the stupidest Act 4 opening ever, but that line is the first line of Act 4. Like it is just oh, and Martin enthusiastically proclaims that they'll win an Emmy for the spaceship's appearance in the visual effects category. It's not only are sci-fi shows rarely nominated for other categories, but Stargate SG-1 itself had been nominated in this category and only this category several times, but it had not won an Emmy to date.
Pandering.
Yeah,
Pandering to the judges.
correct. Ron Wilkerson and the MGM television president Hank Cohen are the two who are getting into the car. The story editor, Ron Wilkerson, and MGM president are the two who are getting in the car, and it's the MGM television president who makes the line about the sexy female alien. Yeah, so this episode is literally just a complete parody of the production of sci-fi
Yeah,
shows in general, and it is chef's
that's
kiss.
amazing.
So this is why I told you that Doug and I were very excited that this episode was coming up.
Ugh, I loved every minute of it. And it didn't even feel like it was part of this season. It felt like it should be a standalone, like this is the Doctor Who Christmas special. It should have been like this is the
Right.
Stargate 100th episode special
I
or
mean, but
whatever
how
they want
many
to call
how
it.
many times does the 100th episode feel like it doesn't belong in the show at all? That happens a lot when it's like a
Yeah.
100th episode thing where it's like, what?
I just want this to be like
Yeah.
more renowned. I want people to go back and be like, oh, you could just go watch the 100th episode. That's fine. You don't have to watch it in the scheme of things. Who needs continuity?
Let's see. This is the 10 best 100th episodes of TV shows ranked. The 100th is the name of the episode from Friends, and that is the episode where Phoebe gives birth to the triplets.
Oh, yes, yes.
Um, Arrows is on here, but have you watched Arrow?
I have, but I don't know that I've made it to the 100th episode
Okay.
because I can't remember if I'm at the beginning of season 4 or at the beginning of season 5.
Okay. Well,
And I don't think
the 100th episode was part of one
it's
of
in
their
season 4,
giant,
right?
yeah, was it? Or
Was
was
it one of the
it
crossovers? Because I have not watched the
yeah, it was one of the
crossovers.
big
Okay.
crossovers. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
the 100th episode of Grey's Anatomy
Not
the
good.
episode where Izzy figures out she has a brain tumor because she's hallucinating Denny and then she marries Alex.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Um,
That was an episode. That was a good one.
yeah. 100th episode of Gilmore Girls is uh it's the Richard and Emily's second wedding episode.
Oh,
Yeah,
that was a good one.
the 100th episode of How I Met Your Mother is the one where Barney has to decide if he is going to give up wearing suits or not.
Gosh, that was the best episode. You're
Yeah.
right. I get it. That was the best.
Yeah. The 100th episode of The Simpsons was in 1994. Um, but
No, it wasn't.
It's called Sweet Seymour Skinner's Badass Song. Um, and it's like Bart trying to help the principal get his job back. Um,
The 100th episode of American Horror Story is about a killer named Ramirez.
um, the 100th episode of Buffy is oh, somebody they're trying to like the one of the bad guys trying to release an apocalypse.
That would be massive. That would be massive.
Yeah. Trying to remember the 100th episode. I remember the 100th episode of the Vampire Diaries. I'm trying to remember which one it
Which
was.
one was that?
Um, the 100th episode of the Vampire Diaries was it had it had like everybody coming back. Like it was like a crazy episode where like there was guest appearances from everyone who had died in the show. And it like showed the when Catherine gave birth to her
Yeah.
daughter and like the whole story of how like
Hmm.
the beginning of how we understand how the doppelgangers work. Yeah. So just like casual. And like they basically were like all these shows do like this big epic 100th episode and we could just like make fun of ourselves the entire time. And honestly,
Yeah, I love that.
I prefer that.
Oh, for sure. 100%.
So,
It
despite the
brings you a little more like into the episode and
yeah, and
makes it
like
a little more nostalgic on the other side.
right, and you like get the mindset of the people making this show. Like they didn't take themselves
Yeah.
seriously, like they knew what they were doing and they knew that it was goofy and that wasn't what this was show was about. And I appreciate
Yeah.
that. So despite the fact that this wasn't really a real episode of the show, who do you want to punch?
Oh my goodness. There's like I don't even oh goodness. I kind of want to punch Michael DeLuise just for being so dumb and such a terrible actor this whole episode,
Yeah,
which means he's probably a great actor. But
right.
just the chaos of it. Like
Yeah.
every
Um,
time he was on the screen, I was like, "Do you know what is real in life?" He's like, "We're getting paid real money. This isn't. How is this not a real
this is not
show?"
a real
I was
TV
like,
show.
I was like, "Look, dude, you're being paid to act whether it is or not. Just keep going. You can't ask the same
Oh
question
my
7
God.
times."
So funny.
So,
I think I will punch Marty. Just because
why not?
what well, we got ourselves into a situation here.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Perfect.
who is your MVP?
My gosh, so many. Um, I think, gosh, I don't know. I think I'm gonna go Jack.
That's
Um,
fair.
just because so many things he said made me laugh.
Yeah. Uh,
I couldn't get enough of him this episode.
no, he was fantastic this episode. I think it's kind of sad that Daniel and Sam basically had to film an actual episode of Stargate, and
I
Jack
know.
and Teal did whatever the fuck this was. Um,
Yeah,
but I think my MVP is going to be Yolanda, who played Sam's character because she asked all the real questions.
that's so funny.
So,
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
um,
And was Don Davis not in this episode, or did I just like
no, no, no,
forget?
he was. He was in the beginning, and
The
remember
very
he was
beginning.
wa
Okay.
he and he watched the. He was the one who told us that the government was letting Wormhole Extreme happen
Oh, right, right.
convince us
Just there was
that
just so much other chaos that
there was
happened that
just it was
like
so
I just
chaotic.
forgot.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
so the next episode, obviously is post hiatus. So we all know what that means. It's going to make no sense because they don't tend to
Great.
do
Can't wait.
that.
So
Um,
thrilled.
but the next episode does bring back some previous characters, and they're and it is a it shows us some military sides to the SGC. So
Okay.
it's a military episode more than an alien episode.
So just
Yeah.
feels like we're getting a little bit of a filler episode.
I wouldn't say that.
No, well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, I think that oh my God. Sorry. The next episode, I wouldn't say it's filler. It's not the greatest, but it's not awful.
Like
But the
stuff still
episode,
happens though.
yeah, the episode after that is not a great episode, but it introduces one of my favorite characters, and I just realized how soon he was being introduced, and I'm so excited.
I am very pleased for you.
Yeah,
This means nothing to me today.
it does not mean
But
anything to you today.
have you met him? Is he one you've met?
No. Oh my God, I die if I
Ooh.
he's one that like he's on my list like that I will die if I meet him. So,
Ooh. All
yeah.
right.
Oh, that's right, because there's characters that I've met that you haven't met on the show
Right.
yet. Right.
So
Yeah, no, no,
many.
no. So many.
Yeah.
But
So
all
many that
right.
I know
Well,
nothing about.
yes. Yes. Well, with that episode, that chaotic, I feel like 2 hour fucking podcast. I was
I think it actually wasn't that long
no, I
because
don't think
I
I
don't
think
think
we started after 12. I don't know
for
what,
sure
yeah. But
it may be an hour and 15 minutes. Like I don't even think it's an hour and a
yeah.
half.
Yeah,
I
I
think
don't
you're
think
fine.
so.
We're fine.
Yeah. I was very nervous that it was going to be like 2 hours.
I wasn't sure it was going to happen. We
But
only talked about the episode for like 20 minutes though, like the actual
right,
episode.
because
So like
we talked about production and
yeah,
conspiracy theories.
you're welcome.
Yeah. Um So with that, if you have any thoughts, theories, feelings, more production notes that we didn't get, because I'm sure I did not find everything out there about this episode, you can email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com or follow us on all of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
I almost totally skipped your intro. I was like, this is where you can find me. But you can find me at CE Cloud 13.
And we will see you guys. Oh, also happy St. Patrick's Day, because that's when this episode comes out. And
What
I
is
meant to say
today?
today is
Hey, happy St. Patrick's
I meant
Day.
to say that at the beginning, but then I didn't. So if you've made it this far, happy St. Patrick's Day.
You've earned it.
Yes. I think that's great that this comes out on a holiday, because what a holiday it
That's the
was.
only way. And what a
Yeah,
holiday. Everyone's drunk. So listen to
correct.
this
And
when
so
you get
was
home from
everyone who
that.
made this show.
Exactly.
Um, with
Yeah.
that, we will see you on Thursday. Bye.